Thank you for introducing me. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers of this program for giving me an opportunity to be the part of Libby Science Talks over this webinar series. So let me start with my presentation. The topic of my presentation today is CRISPR-Cas9 genome editing technique, prospects and challenges. First, I focus on some of the basic concepts such as structure of a cell, DNA, gene, etc. Then I draw my attention to CRISPR-Cas9 genome editing technique, genetically modified human embryos, applications of CRISPR-Cas9 technology, future challenges associated with this technique, and finally on the ethical implications. Let us come to the structure of a cell. The first cell was discovered in 1665 by British scientist Robert Hooke. And this was the microscope used by Robert Hooke. And he examined thin slices of cork or dead plant cells using this microscope. And what he saw looked like small boxes. And he called these small boxes as cells because these small boxes looked like small rooms where monks lived in those days. And that was the discovery of the first cell. We know that there are two different types of cells, simple and complex cells. Simple cells are called prokaryotic cells, and these kinds of cells are seen in bacteria. And complex cells are called eukaryotic cells, and these cells are seen in complex organisms like human beings. And the simplest type of cells lack a nucleus or membrane-bound organelles. Whereas complex type of cells or eukaryotic cells have well-defined nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. Eukaryotic cells contain three basic cell structures: nucleus, cell membrane, and cytoplasm with cell organelles. And this is a cell, and nucleus of the cell contains most of the cell's genetic material, DNA. DNA is called deoxyribonucleic acid. And this DNA is the molecule carries genetic information. And it is responsible for carrying and transmitting hereditary materials or genetic instructions from one generation to the another generation. And it has got a double helical structure. And DNA is it's a nucleic acid, and it is made up of nucleotides, or we can say DNA is a polynucleotide chain. This is a nucleotide. It contains a phosphate unit, sugar molecule, and nitrogenous base. And these are the four bases present in the this DNA molecule: guanine, cytosine, thymine, and adenine. Adenine, cytosine, thymine, and guanine. These are the four nitrogenous bases present in the DNA molecule. And this is a nucleotide, phosphate unit, deoxyribose sugar, and nitrogenous base. And this is a polynucleotide strand or chain. Here, the backbone of this polynucleotide chain, that is made up of sugar and phosphate. And these are two such polynucleotide chains running in the opposite direction, 3', 5', and here it is 5', 3'. And these two strands are held together by means of hydrogen bonds. And thymine base present in one of the strands joins with adenine base present in the other strand through two hydrogen bonds. Similarly, cytosine base present in one of the strands joins with guanine present in the other strand through three hydrogen bonds. And thymine always pairs with adenine and cytosine with guanine. And these two polynucleotide strands twist around each other to form a double helical structure. So this is a DNA double helix. And the order of the bases along the single strand, this order of the bases along the strand, that constitute the genetic code or DNA's instruction. And here you can see this is a phosphate unit, sugar molecule, and nitrogenous base. So this is a nucleotide. And three such nucleotide, we call it as a nucleotide triplet, that can code for a specific amino acid is called a codon. And each amino acid can be coded by more than one codon. Gene can be described as a polynucleotide chain, and it is a segment of DNA. Gene is the basic unit of heredity, and it's a functional unit, and that controls some of the traits like eye color, skin color, intellectual capacity, musical ability. All these things are controlled by genes. And genes also direct the synthesis of proteins. Genes consist of three types of nucleotide sequences: active regions or coding regions called exons, inactive regions or non-coding regions called introns, and regulatory sequences. The nucleus of each cell contains 1.8 meters of the DNA, and this DNA coils up to form butterfly-like chromosomes, and each chromosome has a single molecule of DNA in it. Gene is the unit of hereditary information that occupies a fixed position on the chromosome. And human beings have 20,000 to 25,000 genes located on 46 chromosomes or 23 pairs of chromosomes. And these genes are collectively known as human genome. Genes make proteins that make up nearly all we are: our muscles, our hair, our eyes. And our eye color and hair color all are determined by our genes. And there are different types of genome editing techniques. Gene editing or genome editing is a type of genetic engineering in which DNA is inserted, deleted, modified, or replaced in the genome of a living organism. And genome editing is based on the concept of DNA double-stranded break. We know that DNA has got a double-stranded structure, and the site-specific cleavage of DNA double strand, that is the basis of this genome editing techniques. Of course, there are different types of genome editing techniques. Zinc finger nucleases, ZFNS, transcription activated like effector nucleases, TALEN, meganucleases, then clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats, CRISPR-Cas9 system. So out of this four techniques, CRISPR-Cas9 technique, that is the quickest and the cheapest method. And one of the major advantages of this CRISPR technique over ZFN and TALEN methods is that it can be directed to target different DNA sequences. And let us come to CRISPR-Cas9 genome editing technique. CRISPR is an acronym for clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. These are small DNA repeats, and it is associated with Cas9 protein. And the Cas9 protein that acts as molecular scissors and that is capable of cutting strands of DNA. And this is a powerful genome editing tool. And CRISPRs are repeated sequence of nucleotides. You can see these are the black boxes that represents the nucleotides, and these are the repeated unit of or repeated nucleotide sequences. And interspaced among these nucleotide sequences, you can see blue boxes or DNA bits called spacers are present. CRISPR sequences are the crucial component of the immune system of simple life forms like bacteria. And these organisms use CRISPR-derived RNA along with this Cas9 protein to prevent the attack by viruses and other foreign bodies. Let us come to the steps involved in CRISPR-mediated immunity. So actually it involves three steps: adaptation, production of CRISPR RNA, and targeting. So when a virus attacks a bacterium, virus will inject its genetic material into the bacterium. And this genetic material will then form spacers, and these spacers are then incorporated or inserted into the CRISPR sequence of the bacterium, and that process is called adaptation. And that's the first step. And in the second step, this CRISPR sequence in which spacers derived from this virus is present, it will then produce CRISPR RNAs by a process called transcription. So that's the second step, production of CRISPR RNA. And in the third step, this CRISPR RNA will act as a guide molecule, and it will direct the bacterial molecular machinery to the matching target sequence of the invading virus. It will recognize and cut the DNA of the invading virus. This is because of the fact that the spacers are actually derived from this it's derived from virus genetic material. So, And this CRISPR RNA is it is also derived from this CRISPR sequence in which the spacers are inserted. So the CRISPR RNA that acts as a bank of genetic or bank of memories, so that it will enable the bacteria to recognize the virus and fight off future attacks. And Cas9 will cut and destroy the viral DNA. So this is the mechanism of CRISPR mediated immune mechanism of small organisms like bacteria. But when we come to the organisms, higher organisms like human beings, the CRISPR RNA we can design and synthesize CRISPR RNA in the lab. And this CRISPR RNA will act as guide RNA, and it will cut the targeted DNA sequence present in the human chromosome. And once the DNA is cut, cell attempts to repair this broken DNA by two ways. One is gene silencing, other one is gene editing. In gene silencing, what happens is that during the repair process, some genes are get disrupted, or we call it as gene silencing. Disruption of gene take place. Whereas in gene editing, repair template will introduce some new sequence in the broken part of the DNA, and it will repair it. That is called gene editing. So there's a chance of equal possibility of the occurrence of gene silencing and gene editing. Or we can say this technique is not 100% perfect or accurate. This is because of the fact that the DNA has got a double-stranded structure and it is complementary in nature. As a result, this Cas9 will cut both strands, makes a lot of mistakes during the repair process, and that will introduce mutations and that can disable a gene. So whatever it may be, this technique has got a wide range of application. CRISPR-based technology can be used for the precise detection of Zika and dengue virus, and it is also used for the treatment of HIV and to correct genetic disorders in human embryos. Scientists engineered a fungus called Agaricus bisporus or white button mushroom by using this CRISPR technique to prevent browning process. New research suggests that it is possible to slow down or even reverse the aging process by using this CRISPR technique. And scientists estimate that humans will reach their 120th birthday, or they will celebrate their 120th birthday by 2050, and will develop some tools to reverse the aging process by 2029. Josh Lewis from South America and Cambridge University, UK, mathematician David Woods, together they published a paper, The Death of Death, in which they mentioned that immortality will become a reality by the year 2045, and old age starts to be classified as an illness. So this can be achieved by turning our bad genes into healthy ones, or eliminating our dead cells and repairing the damaged cells. And aging is the result of DNA tails known as telomeres in the chromosomes. So telomeres becomes damaged or shortened with the passage of time. So when we expose to chemicals, smokes, alcohols, air pollutants, etc., that will reduce the length of telomeres, or that accelerates the out-aging process. So reversal of aging means lengthening of telomeres. So that can be done by using this CRISPR technique. That may be a reality in the future. Now we come to genetically modified human embryos. In 2015, 2016, and 2018, Chinese scientists edited human embryos using CRISPR technique. On 28 November 2018, Chinese scientist He Jiankui and his team, they created world's first twin girls by editing human embryos using CRISPR technique. And they claimed that they had done it in order to prevent HIV infection. On 22nd April 2015, Chinese scientist Huang and his team from Sun Yat-sen University edited human embryos and modified a gene linked to fatal blood disorder beta thalassemia. And they used CRISPR technique to edit this human genome. And this research was published in the journal Protein and Cell after it was rejected by the famous journal Nature and Science on ethical grounds. Caution flags have been raised against the use of this technique on human germline editing. On 11th April 2016, the second team of Chinese scientists again, they edited human embryos in order to make them resistant against HIV infection. And in both experiments, these cases, the experiments were only partially successful. Actually, they had taken 26 embryos. Out of that, only 4 of them were successful. The rest of the embryos acquired off-target mutations or unplanned mutations, or we can say editing occurred at wrong places in the DNA. And because of this, they abandoned this experiment at its preliminary stage. Now we come to the promises of genome editing technology. Identification of genes responsible for a particular disorder and to replace that defective gene with a normal gene that will facilitate the development of therapies. And genome editing technology has got immense therapeutic potential for various incurable diseases like cancer, genetic disorders, HIV, etc. Scientists are using CRISPR-Cas9 genome editing technology to facilitate discoveries in cancer biology. On 6th November 2015, Fen Zhang and a Nobel laureate Philip Shah successfully engineered a mice model using CRISPR-Cas9 technology to study the effect of mutations in cancer. On 2nd August 2017, Shaukat Mitalipov is a reproductive biologist from Oregon Health and Science University in Portland, and his team, they used CRISPR-Cas9 technique to edit viable human embryos in order to correct the gene responsible for fatal heart condition in humans called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And this CRISPR-Cas9 genome editing technology that might be incredibly promising because it enables the scientist to locate the bad sections of DNA and to replace it and to correct that disorder. But the precision remains suspect because of the off-target mutation and also because of mosaicism. Mosaicism means all the cells of the embryo do not take up the desired changes. Only few of the cells will take up the desired changes, or we can say embryos contain mixture of edited and unedited cells, or we call it as mosaics. And because of this, caution flags have been raised against the use of this technique on human germline editing. And future challenges. The use of human embryos for scientific research, that's a major concern. And ability to chemically fabricate the complete set of human chromosomes could theoretically allow the creation of babies without biological parents. On 3rd March 2017, the cover story of New York Daily News, that was Design Your Baby. It allows the parents to choose their baby's eye color, skin color, hair color, and even sex. And CRISPR-Cas9 genome editing technique to an embryo, that is a very risky affair because researchers are not in a position to determine with precision the effect of genetic modification of the embryo before birth. And we do not know anything about the fate of the child produced by this kind of technology. And genetic changes to embryos, we call it as germline modification, that are heritable in nature. So it could have unpredictable effect on the future generation. And moreover, it will lead to discrimination in the society. That means rich people will get access to this technique and poor people will not get. So it will increase the gap between rich and poor, or it will lead to fresh marginalization in the society. And moreover, the technology is not 100% accurate or perfect because of the off-target mutation and mosaicism. So this has generated a debate among the world-renowned scientists, and some of them argue that we have to impose a moratorium on this kind of human germline editing, while others argued that it is unethical to withhold a technology that would eliminate the devastating genetic disorders. And internationally, UNESCO has called for a ban on human germline editing to avoid unethical tampering with hereditary traits. People generally think that editing human embryos or human genes might be okay, provided it should not cross the ethical line. So people were more accepting gene editing aimed at treating or preventing diseases. Ted Peters is a famous theologian and philosopher from Graduate Theological Union, Center for Natural Theology and Natural Sciences, University of California at Berkeley. And he said that you have to pause at the yellow caution light. Then with constant risk assessment, proceed. There is no need to stop, but proceed with caution. And we know the difference between gene therapy and genetic enhancement. Gene therapy is used for therapeutic purpose, whereas genetic enhancement is used for cosmetic reasons. And gene therapy, we are replacing a defective gene with a normal gene so as to correct that disorder or to cure that sickness or to slow down the progress of that sickness. That's called gene therapy. Whereas in genetic enhancement and in this gene therapy, that always seeks to return a patient to normal human functioning for therapeutic purpose, used for therapeutic purpose. Whereas in genetic enhancement, we assume that our normal state is flawed or lacking something. So natural biology needs enhancement. And for example, if I want to change my black eye to blue eye or red eye or whatever it may be, so that is called genetic enhancement. So it would intentionally and fundamentally alter human beings. So gene therapy is good, but genetically modifying a healthy human person to be more than human, that is wrong. So what we need to do is that we have to make this technique 100% perfect or accurate by doing this kind of research in somatic cells or our body cells. Or we can also conduct this kind of experiments in animal models. Then make it 100% perfect. Then we can apply these things to human embryos for therapeutic purpose. Of course, we can use this embryo editing technique for therapeutic purpose and also for non-therapeutic purpose. So in both cases, large number of human embryos were destroyed. So where to draw the ethical line and what is human dignity? These are the things that we need to take into account while dealing with this kind of scientific interventions. So let us see some of the ethical principles, the principles of US Presidential Commission for the Study of Bioethical Issues, public beneficence, intellectual freedom and responsibility, responsible stewardship, democratic deliberation, justice and fairness. So let us come to public beneficence. So we have to maximize the public benefit and minimize the public harm. Intellectual freedom and responsibility means we have to use our creative potential in a morally accountable ways. We know the famous Einstein's equation, E is equal to mc square. And that means mass can be converted into energy. And this basic principle can be used for the production of electricity. But at the same time, it can be used for the create or the production of atom bomb. So whenever the risk factors outweighs the benefits, immediately we have to impose restrictions on this kind of research. And so we have to use our freedom for the benefit or the betterment of the humanity. Third one is responsible stewardship. We are the stewards of nature. We are the stewards of our environment, our future generation. So the prudent vigilance always call for the ongoing evaluation of risk along with benefits. And democratic deliberation means collaborative decision making that embraces respectful debate of opposing views and active participation by citizens. So it encourages scientists, policymakers, theologians, philosophers, religious leaders, politicians to come together and to exchange their views on this kind of scientific interventions. And it always encourages the participants to adopt a societal perspective rather than their own individual interest. Justice and fairness means just and fair distribution of the benefits and burdens across the society. You know, each and every technology is associated with burden as well as benefit. So it should be equally shared among the society. The last one is sanctity or dignity of human life. Actually, it is not included in this US presidential principles of US Presidential Commission for the Study of Bioethical Issues. However, I have included it because that is very important, is inevitable when we consider this kind of scientific interventions, such as the scientific interventions that involves human embryo editing. So a creative and harmonious blending of scientific ideas and ethical values, it's not just an option, it's an obligation if the humanity wants to progress along the right path. So our aim is to build a better humanity and a better world and better society. So humans need knowledge, skills, techniques, values, principles, purpose, etc. So science will help us to give knowledge and skills, whereas ethics can give us values and purpose. So, genetic interventions that are therapeutic in nature and that is directed to the correction of a disorder that are acceptable, provided it should promote the personal well being of that individual and it should not infringe on his integrity or worsen the condition of life. So, no harm should be imposed on the future generation. So, scientific discoveries are accountable when it is carried out responsibly, focused on stewarding nature, ensuring peace, harmony, and order in the world. Without harmonious and judicious blending of scientific ideas and ethical values, scientific developments can become a monster that devours the hand that feeds it. Thank you for your kind attention.